All right, so as Republicans are continuing to erode basically every civil liberty and right that we have left in this country, the Democratic establishment is not only not doing anything meaningful to actually push back against this right-wing agenda, but they are in fact helping the most conservative members within their party. Specifically, in this case, we got Nancy Pelosi, who is stepping up to defend Henry Cuellar, who is an aggressively anti-choice, anti-abortion Democrat, against a progressive challenger named Jessica Cisneros. So, as Democrats are coming out with their hair on fire, as they rightfully should be, about this recent leaked draft document that we got from the Supreme Court, basically affirming that they are going to be overturning Roe v. Wade likely in the next couple of months, as Democrats are coming out and putting this in fundraising emails and saying the only solution is to vote in 2022, you simultaneously have the leadership of the Democratic Party, including Nancy Pelosi, including members like Jim Clyburn, who are basically coming out here and defending anti-abortion, anti-choice candidates. So here from Vice News, they say Nancy Pelosi is trying to save an anti-choice Democrat as Roe v. Wade falls. So honestly, the anti-abortion stance that Henry Cuellar takes is not even the only egregious thing that has been happening to him recently. You had the FBI actually recently raid his offices, I think it was, and we don't know the actual specifics of that investigation as it is ongoing, but basically this guy has been getting scandal after scandal, and on top of that, he also has some of the most deranged policy beliefs you could possibly imagine. So here from Vice News, we get into some of the details. They say, in a Texas Democratic primary between an anti-abortion Democrat whose home and office were raided by the FBI, and a young progressive pro-choice woman, a top House Democrats, including Speaker Pelosi, are going with the former. And they say even after it became clear this week that the Supreme Court is apparently planning to overturn Roe v. Wade. And they say Representative Henry Cuellar, a longtime Democratic congressman from Texas's 28th Congressional District, won a plurality of support in the March primary over Jessica Cisneros, a progressive 28-year-old immigration lawyer whom Cuellar narrowly defeated in 2020. They'll face each other in a runoff election on May 24th to decide the Democratic nominee, which Democrats view as key to their slim chances at maintaining a House majority next year. And the conservative Cuellar is avowedly anti-choice, one of the few Democrats left in the House who fits that description. And last year, he was the only House Democrat who voted against the Women's Health Protection Act, which would protect abortion access as a matter of federal law, and was passed in the House after Texas banned abortion after 6 weeks. So the only Democrat in the House to vote against this bill that would actually codify Roe into federal law. So, you have that aspect of it. You also have, the fact that this didn't end up getting out of the Senate. So obviously it did pass in the House of Representatives, but it was blocked by the filibuster in the Senate, which kind of ties into a different aspect of this story, namely Joe Biden's complete refusal to actually stand up to the members of his own party who are opposed to getting rid of the filibuster and who are opposed to the Women's Health Protection Act that's in question right now. So we had this recent question that was asked to Joe Biden in the wake of this Supreme Court leaked draft document. So a reporter asked him, should the Senate do away with the filibuster to codify Roe? Very basic question here. If you actually supported codifying Roe into law, as Joe Biden claims that he does, then this is basically the only strategy whatsoever that Democrats could possibly have right now, or if they somehow pick up Senate seats in 2022, this is still going to have to be the strategy in order to get this actually codified into law. And yet President Biden turned around and he said, I'm not prepared to make those judgments. So when exactly are you going to be prepared to make those judgments? I mean, again, if the idea here is that Democrats are going to use abortion as a 2022 midterm rallying issue in order to maybe, in a dream scenario for them, pick up a few House seats and pick up a few senators, well, you're still going to be left with this exact same dynamic here, where you're going to have a couple Democratic senators who are holdouts on the filibuster, and you're going to need to take on this fight internally. But not only is Joe Biden not willing to take on that fight with the members of his own party, like Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, who oppose getting rid of the filibuster, but he's actually coming out and not even willing to affirmatively say that he believes in the one strategy that would actually get Roe codified into law. So you could not possibly ask for a more pathetic Democratic leadership class here, both on Joe Biden, but also, again, Nancy Pelosi and other corporate Democrats. So A little bit more details here. They say here from a quote from Henry Cuellar himself. He says, "It's called conscience. I am a Catholic and I do believe in the right to life, and it's just conscience." So first off, your conscience is absolutely fucked, both from an objective point of view and also from a religious point of view. Listen, I am an atheist, but I did go to religious school through kindergarten all the way through high school, so I know exactly what the Catholic Church is teaching. And fun fact here, the Bible says absolutely nothing about abortion. In fact, there are multiple different passages within the Bible that you could point to that actually indicate that it does have a more pro-abortion stance than an anti one. So if you're making this on a faith-based assumption of the Catholic Church or what the Bible is saying or what Jesus would say about abortion, it doesn't say anything about it. So making appeals to religion, number one, shouldn't have any basis whatsoever on legislation, as we're supposed to live in a country with a separation of church and state. But even along those religious lines, it's just completely made up. This is something that has been pushed by reactionaries within the Catholic Church, basically pushing this line, but it's not actually anything that's found in the Bible. And he continues saying, "Sometimes people vote because of politics. They think that just because it's a Democratic or Republican issue, for me, it's just a matter of conscience." So again, your conscience is absolutely non-existent. And even if you accepted his bullshit justification here along religious grounds that he's anti-abortion and he doesn't want, or he wants to, in an ideal world, lower the overall amount of abortions that are taking place, well, criminalizing abortion or allowing Roe v. Wade to be overturned so that in conservative states like Texas, abortion is thereby criminalized, that's not even an effective strategy in reducing the amount of abortions. All it's going to do is jeopardize the health and safety of women who are going to be getting abortions regardless of what the law says. They're just going to have to go about it in much more dangerous ways. So, especially as a Catholic or somebody who pretends to be a believer in Jesus's teaching, not exactly, reaching out to the most vulnerable people within society. Of course, a ban on abortion within these states is only going to affect working class and poor women. It's not going to affect the, wives or mistresses of these Republicans who are putting these laws into effect. They can just go around the country and get their abortions elsewhere because they can afford it. So this really is class warfare at the end of the day. And I honestly couldn't think of anything that is more anti or really more against and opposed to the teachings of Jesus. But nonetheless, that was his basis for his decision here. And they continue with more details saying Cuellar has been endorsed by top House Democrats, including Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Majority Whip James Clyburn, as well as the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, whose campaign arm funded attacks on Cisneros in 2020. And Pelosi's Political Action Committee gave Cuellar $4,000 in December, according to FEC records. And Cisneros, on the other hand, is vehemently pro-choice and has been endorsed by reproductive rights advocacy groups such as the NARAL and Emily's List, as well as progressive politicians like Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, and AOC. And they say, in addition to the anti-abortion egregious stances that he has on that Cuellar has also been plagued by questions about his integrity. In January, the FBI raided his home and office in connection with an investigation into ties between Azerbaijan and U.S. companies and groups. Records related to Cuellar and his wife were subpoenaed, ABC News reported in January, but his lawyer told Fox News last month that Cuellar is not the target of the investigation. So again, kind of unclear exactly how this is going to shake out. But they say even with the FBI raid and his almost total opposition to abortion rights, Cuellar is continuing to receive enthusiastic support from the House Democratic leadership. Clyburn, the third-ranking House Democrat, who wields major influence in national Democratic politics, is set to campaign for Cuellar in a Get Out the Vote event on Wednesday in San Antonio. So not only are they coming out and endorsing him, but James Clyburn specifically is literally going to campaign for this guy who is both under FBI investigation and also is extremely vehemently anti-choice, while he's up against a progressive challenger who not only would be pushing for other good, bold progressive policies like Medicare for all, a $15 minimum wage, a Green New Deal, etc., but she also is vehemently pro-choice. So, the choice here is very clear if you actually were principled in your beliefs and, you're coming out here and using this as a fundraising issue that Republicans are doing this assault on abortion rights, while simultaneously you're turning around and endorsing anti-abortion candidates. It's just complete rank hypocrisy from the Democratic leadership. And you see that, in combination with Joe Biden's statements here, they have no plan whatsoever to actually fight for abortion rights, whether right now or in the immediate future after the 2022 midterms, assuming Democrats pull off some Herculean, a comeback win basically, and maybe pick up a couple Senate seats. They're going to be in the exact same position and they're going to be using the exact same excuses. So The hilarious part about all of this is coming in the wake of basically the entirety of liberals on Twitter, at least the ones that I were seeing, rallying around blaming the left for not supporting Hillary Clinton in 2016 and basically blaming everyone but the most powerful people in the country in the Democratic Party right now for the failure to protect Roe v. Wade. So here, ironically, from Nancy Pelosi's daughter, she says, "We warned you for years, but some of you with lofty lefty platforms told people not to vote for Democrats to send a message in 2010. You didn't heed our warnings in 2016. Now you are shocked that the Republican Supreme Court will overturn Roe, but you should be ashamed." No, you know who should be ashamed is people like Hillary Clinton, who literally picked a anti-choice and anti-abortion vice presidential pick to run her campaign with. How are you going to turn around and blame voters for not supporting Hillary Clinton when that's who she picked as her vice presidential candidate? How are you going to turn around and blame voters when your own mother, the leader of the Democratic Party in the House of Representatives, is literally coming out here and endorsing and campaigning for anti-abortion candidates? It's a complete contradiction of everything that they are saying right now, trying to blame the left. I mean, it's so fucking pathetic and delusional and ahistorical. I mean, even if you just want to get down to the basics of 2016, more Bernie supporters showed up to vote for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton voters showed up to vote for Obama in 2008. So again, they're complete hypocrites and they're completely delusional about not only the history of how this all unfolded and the failures of Democrats to pack the Supreme Court to, under the Obama administration, when he had a supermajority to codify Roe into law at that time. They're completely ahistorical in their analysis, and on top of that, delusional in terms of what would actually be effective in bringing people over to your side and motivating people to show up in the midterms. While Democrats, their entire messaging seems to be vote for us in 2022 so that we can maintain the exact same do-nothing dynamic that we have in place right now. So, I mean, yeah, you could maybe in an ideal world pick up a couple senators here and there, but that's not going to necessarily change the underlying dynamic of having multiple Democratic holdouts on the filibuster. You're not going to get to 60 senators, so you're going to have to take on that infighting battle within your own party, but they're just completely refusing to. So another hilarious take here from Sean Patrick Maloney, who is a representative from New York's 18th in the House of Representatives. Here's what he had to say. He said, "We're angry and hurt, I know, but it's not about the filibuster, the size of the court, or what the Senate hasn't passed. It's about Republicans, not us. We can save our freedoms, but it's November, stupid." So literally calling voters stupid, okay, as a way to, I guess, motivate them to show up and support your party. I mean, again, completely fucking delusional and ridiculous, but how are you going to turn around and say it's about Republicans, not us? Of course it's about Republicans in the sense that Republicans are the one pushing this attack on abortion rights, but you are in power right now. You have control of the House. You have control of the Senate. You have the White House. How are you going to look voters square in the eye, say that they're stupid for not recognizing that it's all about the 2022 midterms, while you guys right now are not doing anything to pressure the members of your own party that are preventing Roe v. Wade from being codified and protected at the federal law via legislation that, again, you have the power. If there was some bullying going on within the Democratic Party, if Joe Biden wasn't coming out here and, not even openly giving his approval for the one strategy that would actually get this codified into law, if you would do literally anything whatsoever with the power that you have at your disposal. But instead of doing any of that, they're turning around and blaming voters. They're turning around and saying, it's not actually about the filibuster. How is it not about the filibuster? It's entirely about the filibuster. That's the one strategy that would actually get abortion rights protected in this country. It's not about the size of the court. Well, that's the other one strategy that would be able to get this enacted into law. I mean, again, it's just completely delusional, but this is the strategy that Democrats are running on in 2022. They plan to use this attack on abortion rights as a fundraising strategy for themselves and for their candidates to protect their incumbents. Many of them, in the case of Henry Cuellar there, are literally anti-abortion candidates. So they're going to use this to fundraise. They're going to use this to generate political momentum. And at the end of the day, even if in a dream scenario, they end up picking a couple seats in the House and a couple of seats in the Senate, they're still going to be in the same fucking dynamic of having Democratic senators who are holdouts on the filibuster who aren't going to be willing to get this passed. So, you have to change strategies if you actually believe in this, but clearly if Nancy Pelosi, Jim Clyburn, Joe Biden, they're not even willing to come out and push for the one strategy that would get this codified into law, then how much can you believe them that they give a single ounce or shit about protecting abortion rights?